I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me.
Welcome to Distributed, a DC sports podcast, more specifically a Washington Commanders podcast. Looking here at Week 7, Washington Commanders going on the road against the New York Football Giants. Want to do the full breakdown here for you on the Distributed podcast. I am KDot, rolling at you once again solo dolo, as our man Amit is still out of pocket. More specifically, A-Train's out of pocket. We're hoping Amit can make a comeback here to us very, very soon. I'm just praying for that. But I want to do standard podcast here for you, give the full breakdown of this Giants game coming up here on Sunday. We'll do the standard, talk about the 2023 New York Giants as a whole. Then we'll get into the Washington Commanders offense against the New York defense, and then the Commanders defense against the New York offense. Then I'll go through my predictions, tell you if I got any parlays, what have you. But before we get into any of that, just want to make sure you guys, if you love the podcast, please make sure you're liking, commenting, and more importantly, share this shit. Oh, I had something just fall, but it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Not to mention, my glasses crooked and whatever. Not looking the best here tonight, but we'll figure it out. All right, so the New York Football Giants sitting here right now at 1-5. I think everybody's kind of looked at them as a bit of a laughing stock this year, but hey, you know, if you really look at it, while it has been very, very difficult there for them, you can look at some other things and say, they've had a decent season. I mean, hold on, let me take that back. They have not had a decent season. They're 1-5. They also but they're coming off of a game against the Buffalo Bills that came down to them in their last play of the game. I mean, there was the pass interference call that could have had them go up with the touchdown. Then you had the shenanigans that happened also on them at the end of the first half. But they were right there in the game against Buffalo. And I mean, the Buffalo Bills, we've seen what they have been capable of doing all this year. We saw what they did to us. You'd say that they had a damn good game, losing 14-9 on the road there at Buffalo. Not a terrible performance overall. It was just a very, very sloppy game. But overall, if you look at 1-5 for the New York Giants, you'd think, oh my God, they're the worst team ever. And look, some things on paper, if you look at the offense and defense, which we'll get into more details there, they're not ranked high at all. But the one thing that I would say as far as these Giants you need to make sure you don't overlook is the fact that they've had some damn good opponents that they've played this year. So the one victory they have is against the Arizona Cardinals. Same thing that we did. 31-28 is what they did in that game. But if you look at the losses there for them, the Dallas Cowboys, the San Francisco 49ers, the Seattle Seahawks, the Miami Dolphins, and then, once again, the Buffalo Bills. If you look at all those teams, all but one, that Arizona Cardinals games, are all against opponents who made the playoffs last year. Not saying all of them were world beaters right now, but if you really want to look at it, a team like the Giants going 1-5 against these opponents doesn't look absolutely terrible. I mean, if I look at the Washington Commanders overall, do we think we'd have a much better record playing against those same teams? I don't know. Just saying this is not necessarily a team to overlook. Now, also going through a bit of the injury report. I know I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm recording this late on Thursday night. I'm sure there'll be more injury news going into Friday, but I think the big thing that everybody's worried about is the Daniel Jones aspect. Tyrod Taylor is the one that started there for them against Buffalo. But overall in this team, I mean, this is a Giants team that's kind of give us fits over the last few years. So I just don't want it to be a team that we overlook just because of that 1-5 record. This is a game that could absolutely go either way. They have a lot of guys that are of note. They haven't had the best season so far, but this is also a team that's played some pretty tough opponents from looking at them overall. So just want to make sure that we're not doing anything to say that, of course the Giants aren't good. I don't think anybody's under the realm that they're good. But I also don't think that anybody looks at this Washington team at 3-3 and think that we're necessarily all good. So it's just not a team that we need to be sleeping on. Okay, just gonna point that out. So now if we're gonna do the breakdown as far as some of the positions, we'll start with the Washington offense against the New York Giants defense. Now the Washington offense, we'd say they came alive to a certain degree last week, right? Playing a hell of a game overall. If we're looking at the total at the end of it, 24-16 against the Atlanta Falcons. But I think what a lot of people have pointed out to me, since we did the since I did the last episode, is if you're looking at a lot of situations where we're in scoring position, it was a lot of short fields or penalties or this, that, and the other that kind of got us in the position where we were. The Washington offense overall has done fairly good this year compared to what I think a lot of people would think. Like, we've had multiple performances where we've hit 30 points against Denver, 30-some points against Philadelphia, 24 against Atlanta, 20. We've been able to move the ball to a certain degree. And if we're looking at the Giants defense, what they are ranked right now, 27th overall. So you'd think that, okay, there should be some recipes for success there with it. But I think what you got to look at is how we'd go about it, right? So this Giants defense, they have some names that are of note. I know that if you're a Washington fan, you know the name Kayvon Thibodeau. That's a dude that has had a pretty quiet year so far. He's had one game with 2 sacks, another game with a sack, and then everything else has been goose eggs. But looking at this Washington offense, whether or not you want to blame Sam Howell or the offensive line, this is one of those days that a guy as talented as Kayvon Thibodeau could potentially eat against us. And that's something that we don't necessarily want at all. So I think with Sam Howell, it's always going to be keeping him upright, but there's going to be some opportunities for him to take some shots down the field. They did a pretty good job as far as Buffalo. If you look at that point total, Buffalo didn't score any touchdowns until the fourth quarter. But if I'm looking at Buffalo overall, I think what they ended up doing was getting so pass happy over the course of the game. And later on, as it went down, they had a recipe for success, which I think would be the same recipe the Washington needs to follow, which is running the damn ball. Okay, so if you're looking at the New York Giants overall this season, I'm going to try to pull up their rushing totals or their rush defense totals per game. So you look at Buffalo. Buffalo was able to put up 128 yards there on the ground. Once again, a lot of those yards came from what I saw in the highlights. I did not watch the full game, but it looks like they started out getting really, really pass happy with Josh Allen. Things just weren't necessarily converting. Also, what needs to be noted is that Brian Dable, who's the head coach there for the New York Giants, was also the offensive coordinator for Buffalo. So if there's anybody that's going to have something kind of queued up as far as against their passing attack, it was going to be him. I'm sure he taught the defense coordinator ad nauseum and had something really worked up for him, and it was working for the most part. But when they started getting more of that balanced attack with James Cook, it was nice out. But then if you look at the game before that against the Miami Dolphins, they gave up 222 yards on the ground. The game before they against Seattle, 121 yards. Before that, 141, 151, 122. I think for Washington on offense, while Sam Howell has been the guy that I think has had all the stats, right? If you take away that Buffalo Bills games with the 4 interceptions, Sam Howell's stats look kind of off the charts. I think he's top 10 in almost any category that really matters at the quarterback position. But I also think if you're looking at this offense, what we've been doing a lot is getting pass happy. Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson have not run the ball terribly here for Washington. I know sometimes when you look at the overall total scores, they look pretty low, but you got to look at the carries. We just haven't been running the football enough. And when it comes to against this New York Giants defense, I think that what you saw Buffalo do was get a little bit pass happy and not be able to get what they needed to have long sustaining drives because they didn't have the rushing attack working. For us, I think it's got to be a run the ball thing. If we have Sam Howell stepping back there, I'm afraid of guys like Kayvon Thibodeau being able to pin their ears back and potentially get into our guy, right? And I know that Sam Howell overall has had a good season when you take away that the Buffalo Bills game. What I do know because that Buffalo Bills game has happened is that if these guys are able to pin their ears back and get after him, put their hands on him, really, really start to hitting them, I think this defense, while they have not been world beaters to anybody this season, could be one that gives us fits. And when you have guys, I know I keep saying his name in Kayvon Thibodeau, but it's a dude that, if I'm being completely honest, kind of scares me on the defense. But even other guys like Dexter Lawrence, who I know we're all familiar with, Leonard Williams, another guy I know you're all familiar with. And then in the secondary, you have guys like Adoree Jackson. Once again, these are guys, they're not all pros, but they are dudes that are talented enough to get the job done to some degree. And what I think that what we can do is eliminate their ability to kind of make plays or make those game-changing plays, potentially getting that sack, fumble, whatever. Just run the ball. Keep it simple. I haven't seen us do that really this year as far as make the run our identity throughout the course of a game. But that's what I'd like to see here. I'd like to see the run. I've talked ad nauseum about the run setting up the pass. I just don't think we've done a good enough job of that. I want to run. Keep the time possession in our hands. make it so that we show that we are going to be a more physical, demanding team than anybody else. Punch them in the mouth. I want to punch them in the mouth game. I miss those, right? I don't think we've had that at all this year. The Brian Robinson angry runs. I want to see him all over the NFL Network come Monday morning when Kyle Brandt's going over who had the angriest run on Sunday. I think run it down their fucking throats. There's plenty of opportunity for it to happen. In Washington overall, I think we're averaging just over 4 yards a carry, which puts us smack dab in the middle, if not up, when it comes to the rest of the league. Not everybody's running at 5 yards a fucking carry. Most of them are right around the 4 mark. We can do this if we stick with it. And then what you're able to do is, because we know Sam Howell's not a guy that's afraid to take his shots when need be, set it up, get that one. If they have to stack the box against Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, run the ball down their throat, then take those one-on-ones that you might have on the outside with Terry McLaurin. Take advantage of Curtis Samuel being on a mismatch there with a linebacker if you see it happening. But you need to make sure that we're establishing the run of this game, because I think with New York, you could see in that Buffalo Bills game, if you rely on the pass solely and only, they might be able to stay in that game. And I don't consider us anywhere near as talented as that Buffalo Bills team. Shit, you could see it when we played against them. Stick with the run. It'll allow other things to happen, and it'll give us the absolute best opportunity to win the game. Now, switching. Washington defense against New York Giants offense. Now, the big thing, as I mentioned earlier, is whether or not Daniel Jones is going to be playing. Once again, I'm recording this on Thursday night. You guys are going to see this at Friday at 2 if you watch it as soon as it comes out. We'll probably know more as far as the Daniel Jones deal goes. But as of right now, from last I heard, he was suffering from the neck injury that had it kept out last game. He had, as of Thursday, he was still not cleared for contact. He was in practice, throwing the ball around, but everything that I've heard as far as the reports is that he looked extremely gingerly, everything like it hurt after every time that he threw the ball. So I'm probably not too confident that Daniel Jones is going to play. I will say this, if you're a Washington fan, we're all Washington fans here, except for whatever Giants fan might tune in just to start hating, right? Daniel Jones has been the guy that's kind of given us issues, right? He's 5-1-1 against us. You pretty much, his contract that he got in New York, he can probably thank the Washington Commanders for a lot of that, right? He has always his best performances against us. Now, that's not to say that that means anything really going forward, especially if he's coming off the injury, but I just want to know that that's something to take note of. Daniel Jones always usually shows his best when he's playing against us. But if I had to put any money down on it, I would say if it's still Thursday and he's not clear for contact, if he's still looking gingerly as he's throwing any sort of passes, then I'm going to assume most likely we're going to be facing Tyrod Taylor running that offense on Sunday. And if that's the case, I don't know. I don't know if that makes me more scared or less scared. I would just say that Tyrod Taylor in that offense didn't really do a whole hell of a lot much against Buffalo. They had 2 opportunities that got through errors of their own, or if you want to blame the refs, at the end of the first half, the end of the second half, they had the opportunity to put up 2 touchdowns there, but they didn't get it done. And that's sort of been the Giants overall, just not getting the job done. But one guy that they did have returned back into the fold last week is Saquon Barkley, who's not played the full accompanying games this year. And Saquon looked pretty good against Buffalo. He had a pretty decent day running football, I believe, without looking it up. It was 24 carries for 93 yards. They were able to move it. And Tyrod Taylor overall, as far as his passing stats in that game, let's see if I can pull him up right here, because I think overall in the box score, it didn't look too bad. 24, 36, 200 yards, 3 sacks, no touchdowns, no picks. Pretty clean day. And I think that's what's going to, I think that's also what you got to look at as far as the recipe for this, for what we need to look out for when it comes to this New York Giants offense. They're going to want to run the ball with Saquon Barkley. We've talked about it. A lot of teams have had success, especially if they, maybe not a lot of teams have stuck with it, but they've had success as far as averages when it comes to on the ground against us. And I would say that Saquon Barkley should have some opportunities to do that, but we need to make sure that we're shutting that shit down more than anything. You can see in the Atlanta games, that was something that I didn't necessarily talk about too much last week. You can see the focus more than anything that Jack Del Rio had in the defense was shutting down Bijan Robinson and have Desmond Ridder make the mistakes. I don't think Tyrod Taylor is prone to make the same mistakes that Desmond Ridder would have, but I would still say if there's anybody that you're going to say, hey, beat us, it's going to be Tyrod Taylor in this particular game. You want to make sure Saquon's not the guy doing it. Stack the box to whatever it is you got to do to make sure Saquon's not, they're not getting the first downs on the ground, they're not keeping that time possession going. The secondary showed up in certain aspects of the Atlanta game. I mean, if you look at, we got the turnovers and stuff, but I really do think when looking through the game, and I went and I made sure that I watched some of the highlights in the All 22, Desmond Ridder just made some terrible, terrible fucking decisions. Yeah, there just wasn't a whole lot that you could say that look, Washington got the picks when need be. You still got to make the catch. You got to make the you got to do what you need to do. There were some lame fucking balls coming there from Desmond Ridder in that goddamn game. It was rough to look at it sometimes. But Tyrod Taylor, while he didn't throw any picks against the Buffalo Bills, did look fairly efficient at certain points. And overall, if I'm looking at, like, if you're going to stack the box against Saquon Barkley, not Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, then who do we got to worry about on the outside? And that's Darius Slayton, Darren Waller, when he's not hurt, which seems to be half of every game, and Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt seems to be one of those home run guys. I'd be worried about him potentially beating us over the top. Darius Slayton had a pretty good game against Buffalo. 4 catches, 69 yards. Wendell Robinson, 8 catches, 62 yards. They have some guys. I mean, you look at what Drake London was able to do against us too. I think there are going to be some opportunities for them to take shots. I wish our secondary can step it up. Make it that it wasn't just Desmond Ridder throwing ducks. It was these guys stepped up in some sort of capacity and prevented the offense or the receivers from getting these receptions. But if there's one pick my poison sort of thing, I'm going to try everything I can do to make sure Saquon Barkley does not have that 100-yard game where he's slashing us here and there, or that methodical, hey, I'm going to get 5.5 yards a run and convert these first downs and just keep the Washington offense off the field and have that Washington defense look so goddamn tired when they get into the red zone and then scoring touchdowns. The pick your poison is, if there's anything, make Tyrod Taylor beat you. And I think with either one of those quarterbacks, something else that we've always have to take notice when it comes to anything on this Washington defense this year is making sure they stay disciplined enough not to give up those rushing lanes that Tyrod Taylor can beat you with his feet. Daniel Jones, as we know, against us more than anybody, if he does play, can beat us with his feet. Pause. Super pause. This game needs to come down to our playmakers making big plays after just stopping the run. So Chase Young has had a damn good season if you're going to look at PFF as far as pass rush grade, things like that. But I still haven't seen the defensive line look very, very cohesive as a unit in generating pressure, or at least generating sacks. I still think the sack totals are fairly low for us overall in the year compared to the talent that we have. And I know I have my criticism for Jack Del Rio, but I will be absolutely upset if we cannot stop the run and generate a legit enough pass rush with our front four to get Tyrod Taylor off schedule, to get Daniel Jones off schedule, to force them into making some mistakes in which we can have a successful day on defense and not one of those games in which we're giving up 30 points again, unlike what happened in the Atlanta Falcons game. Once again, they moved the ball a certain degree, and then Desmond Ridder would just fuck it all up. I don't think that they have in Tyrod Taylor or Daniel Jones a guy that will do that, to repeat again, but I still think this Washington defense is talented enough to hang with everybody. They're just not necessarily playing up to snuff. And while I might blame coaching, regardless, they're just, they haven't stepped it up the way they needed to over the course of this year. And the last thing that I think any of us want is a 1-5 New York Giants team running roughshod over us, a la the Chicago Bears in their get right game. Just not looking forward to that. Can't happen, right? We cannot let that happen. Now, getting our prediction here for the game. So right now, the Washington Commanders are pulling it up, a 3-point favorite going on the road against New York. Everybody's looking at 1-5. Yeek. Not to mention, I still think a lot of people are looking at Washington and what it is we did in that Philadelphia game, saying, oh, these guys might still have some talent. What's going on with them? And the over and under is 37.5 points. So what do I think is going to happen here in this particular game? I'm going to pick the Commanders. I think that overall, this front four, in my opinion, going up against what seems probably be a backup quarterback, even though a backup veteran in Tyrod Taylor, I expect them to step the fuck up, man. And get the job done. I think this defense has been one every year in which starts off middling and then they get better. I think this year they've started off worse than they ever have. And maybe the Atlanta Falcons game was a get better game, but maybe it was something that they can hang their hats on and really show up. Also think offensively, Sam Howell has been a guy that's not afraid to take his shots down the field, not afraid to make any throw. And if we can stick with an offensive game plan that is Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson running the ball down the throats of the New York Giants, which I know they're capable of doing, then I think we can get this victory. I'm going to say final score on this one, 2014, Commanders win. So taking the under as far as the points, and I got us to cover as far as the 3. I don't want to regret that. Remember, I did not take the Commanders last week as far as what I saw in that it going into that Falcons game. And I know for me, I said that they needed to show me stuff there on the field before I would feel comfortable doing that. And even though I was not blown away necessarily with the Atlanta Falcons game, they did find a way to get a win. And I think this is one of those games that I think it'll probably be one of those ones that kind of go back and forth. I can imagine New York maybe starting with 7 points. We do our run, maybe score a couple touchdowns. And then I think New York will do everything they can to tie it up maybe at the end. And then we'll do what we can to get the victory off of Sam Howell's shoulders, who I'm going to say will be player of the game. I want to say Brian Robinson will be player of the game, but I think when they get in the red zone, they're still going to have Sam Howell do some shit. So I'll say Sam Howell win the game. He'll have the best stat line at the end of this. At least I'm hoping. Oh, God, I'm going back to hoping. See, I'm already second-guessing myself. We can win this game, guys. And I think we have to. Maybe it's not we have to if this season's going to really mean something, right? We're in a stretch of games in which we have to get these victories. We looked at the season and saw the Chicago Bears, the Atlanta Falcons, the New York Giants and said, this is going to be our opportunity to make something happen. You have to win these games if you're going to have any shot at winning some of the other ones that are coming up. We already lost one. To think that we're going to be in that run of 3, 1-2, and not 2-1 is sickening to me. Especially when we have Philadelphia coming up. And then we got, the Patriots, Seahawks, Giants again, Cowboys, Dolphins, Rams, Jets, Niners, Cowboys. This team is better than the laughingstock. We should be able to get some of these wins. Make this one happen, Washington. Make it happen. All right, now on to my parlays. Now, this one, I'm going to keep it kind of light. I'm thinking a 3-legger based on what I'm saying as far as Sam Howell, and I know they're going to take their shots here with him. I know Brian Robinson is always easy for 50 yards. So what I'm going to say is that I'm going to go with something that I think they're going to do regardless, win or loss. I'm hoping they'll be more sad to a win. But here we're going to go 3 legs as far as the same game parlay. This is on BetMGM. I got Sam Howell for one passing touchdown, at least one passing touchdown. Sam Howell for over 219.5 yards, over 220 yards, and Brian Robinson over 50 yards rushing. All 3 of those legs give you plus 165, so make your money back then some. Double your money. Double and a half your money. And a little bit more, right? I think these 3 legs can be had. I'm going to put some money on this one. I'm going to put money where my mouth is. Put a few dollars here, put a few shekels here on this one. But yeah, I still think we can win this game, right, guys? Yeah. All right, now moving on to the comment mailbag. Let me pull up these comments here from the last video. Try to go in some sort of order. What do we do? Well, so we go newest, and I'll start from the bottom. All right, so the oldest comments to the newest comments, right? So from Hey Tom Banjo. Well said. Nothing about this win gives me any kind of extra confidence going into next week. 2 of our 3 TD drives started at the Atlanta 27 and Atlanta 11 yard lines. Without a super rare punt return and the Fuller interception, we lose this game. But those things did happen, and we did win the game, and we will take it. I know you said well said on my part. Well said on your part, Hey Tom Banjo. I think I alluded to some of this stuff as far as the short field and everything. And yeah, I know this game, nothing that happened in that Atlanta game gives me any extra boost of confidence here with this game itself. And even when I'm going over the opponents that New York has faced, the only thing with the New York opponents is that they haven't only lost to these opponents that were all playoff teams last year. They've lost pretty badly outside of this Buffalo Bills game. And once again, the Buffalo Bills game, what I'm giving a lot of credit to is Brian Dable being the former offensive coordinator there in Buffalo and probably knowing a whole hell of a lot about what it is that Buffalo was going to do. And Buffalo's offense looking really, really spotty and him taking advantage of it. At least that's what I'm hoping. But once again, I agree with you. No extra confidence. I just think New York, regardless of opponents played, have just played pretty fucking poorly. That's all I'm saying. Tony P. Tony. All right, man, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you. Appreciate you too, Cody. But I agree with KDot. I'm happy they did the thing they were supposed to do and win, but it wasn't a commanding win. See what you did there? It was a mid-performance. The D stepped up, but the offense is always stale for 2 to 3 quarters. Does the offense score 24 points without the Crowder punt return or Felizanti? I don't know. I saw a post on X. I hate that we call it X. We still call it X. We call it X, not Twitter. That said that after the Commanders scored to make it 24-10, there were 12 minutes to play in the third quarter. They ran 16 more offensive plays for 31 yards and got 2 first downs. Sounds about right. That felt like that. Like, wow, you guys are kind of in the comments making me want to sway what it is I'm feeling happening in this damn game. Was that a negative? I don't feel it was negative. It just wasn't excited, right? I guess you guys are saying the same thing. Yeah, does the offense score 24 points without the Crowder punt return or Felizanti? I know. No, they don't. They don't. But once again, Atlanta's defense, top 10, man. Top 10 defense, Atlanta Falcons. And the offense is uber talented. They are overall, in my opinion, a better team than the New York Giants. I mean, in all honesty, if I'm looking at both teams overall, I'd say that the New York Giants probably have a better star on defense in Kayvon Thibodeau than anybody that Atlanta has. Quarterback-wise, I give it to New York just because until they start Taylor Heineke, I'm not a Desmond Ridder guy. But outside of that, wide receivers, I'm taking Atlanta. Running back, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley. I know Bijan started the year really, really on fire. It's kind of cooled down just a bit, but I still think he's super talented. I just don't think they're necessarily using him correctly. I'd probably say Saquon, I'd pick him, but not if I had to pay him. I'd probably pick a Bijan. So I don't know. I just think Atlanta overall has just played better. I think they're a better team. I just think this New York Giants team has been pretty bad. And I know it's a division opponent, but I just think they've been bad. Ridge, where your helmet at? I received a collect call from Bulgaria today. Decline that shit. Hope our boy A-Train is all right, though. Yeah, I've heard that he was messing with some of those Eastern European countries, which I have no issues with. But, I mean, we've seen enough movies to know that they're usually the bad guys in any of them, right? Taken, especially Taken. I feel like they're in a lot of John Wick movies. Usually a henchman there. I feel like if there's a henchman movie, it's usually Eastern European, right? Without naming names. I don't want to name any particular countries. And not to ostracize everybody in Eastern Europe, but survive. And if A-Train's over there, Lord knows what he's getting into. Ridge, you're doing the right thing. Do not enable it. Keep declining those collect calls. Oh, and then we have a comment from the man himself, Mr. Amit. Ain't no powder hit. Ain't no powder hit quite like that Jamison Crowder. This feels like an A-Train comment. Fantastic punt return to swing the momentum and grab some much-needed W. Yes, and I know that was mentioned more than once here in this, and I don't think I mentioned it all in that last episode. Jamison Crowder, the old man, returns the punts. Well, he returns to Washington and is returning punts, and he looked damn good. That was the best punt return I've seen by a Washington player since DeAndre Carter in the preseason a few years back. Yeah, I loved what I saw in that punt return. I wish he didn't run out of gas, but I mean, I ain't blaming him. I couldn't catch that goddamn punt in the first place, let alone run it back any distance. Shit, I tried to jump the other day. The bigger guy. That sounds ridiculous. I tried to jump the other day just to see what my vertical was. Sad, sad ting. Sad ting. Sad, sad tings. All right. This has been another solo episode, Dish Divided. I'm KDot, and looking forward to this Washington-New York game, even though I'm still kind of dwelling on some of those comments, and now I'm a little more afraid. But I'm going to stick with everything. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with the prediction. I'm going to stick with the Washington win. Whew. Hopefully I'm wearing shades on Mondays, guys. Yeah. Victory Monday. Cross the fingers. Once again, Dish Divided, a DC sports podcast, more specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. I am KDot. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, please like this video. Please drop a comment, even to say that, like, hey, I didn't really like this video. Hey, I miss Amit. Hey, you did a great job. Well said. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever your thoughts are, just drop them there in the comments. And then regardless, also share that shit. And then share that shit with an additional comment, right? You could add it on X with a little post. Hey, look at this jackass. I don't care. Just share this shit. Yeah, and after the pod starts now. I have no idea what the fuck I'm going to say in the after the pod segment right here. I did not go to the movie this week. Something I typically do. Alamo Draft House in Northeast DC. I know they got one in National Landing, which was Crystal City out by Pentagon City, but on Tuesdays do $7 movie tickets. It's a great deal. But I did not check out anything because there was nothing new that came out this week that I was going to see before today. The new movie that is out is Killers of the Flower Moon, which I'm extremely excited to go see. The Martin Scorsese flick, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, and a woman who I think will be a household name by the end of this year, going into next year, Lily Gladstone. If you don't know her, please check her out, and also watch that show on FX called Reservation Dogs. I'm sure I'll be talking about Flowers of the Killer Moon next week after I go see it, at some point over the weekend or early next week, but I'll leave that alone for right now. What I will say is that it's October, and during October, I'm a horror movie guy, right? I love horror movies, and we're in that spooky season, so I've been trying to catch up on some stuff that I haven't seen, and also watching some of my absolute faves, as far as just the classics go, right? Like, I know before Halloween will happen, I know The Exorcist is going to get fired up, still, in my opinion, the scariest movie ever created. I still remember the first time I saw that with I was in 4th grade. My dad decided, hey, we're going to do scary movies on Halloween night. And we stopped at Blockbuster on P Street. It was underneath the CVS there near DuPont Circle. And he picked up The Exorcist, The Omen, and was Nightmare on Elm Street. Picked up those 3. And I remember we watched The Omen first, and I didn't really care that much for it. I remember thinking it was kind of boring overall, and like the demon antichrist thing, just I didn't give a shit about. Then we watched The Exorcist, and I think his game plan was watch The Exorcist, and then we'll do Nightmare Before Elm Street, so they're afraid to go to sleep. And that was kind of cruel, but I'd do the same thing if I had a kid, if I'm being completely honest. Built character in us, I think. But after we watched The Exorcist, I remember me and my siblings, or my sister, and then my cousin, who I basically call my sister, where we used to watch movies in the big master bedroom. Yeah, I had the biggest TV in my parents' bedroom. That was like the hangout spot. And after we watched the movie, we see my dad grab his car keys and start heading out, and we're like, well, where are you going? He's like, I'm gonna get some ribs. Y'all are okay. You just stay right here. I remember we all said, fuck that, and piled into the car with our pajamas. Terrified of anything. The Exorcist is one of those movies that if I watch, it takes me a full week or 2 to fully recover before I'm thinking like every bump in the dark is something, right? It's just one of those ones that fuck with me still psychologically. And if you're a Washingtonian, like a diehard local guy, you'll also know the story behind, like, everybody knows the Exorcist stairs over in Georgetown. Like, I grew up where I went to school in Georgetown. But actually, my entire educational career could be tracked basically by Wisconsin Avenue. Went to Hyde Middle School in Georgetown, Hyde Elementary School in Georgetown, went to Hardy Middle School, North Georgetown, and then went to Wilson up in Tenleytown. And then when I went to college, it was Montgomery Community College, which was further up off Rockville Pike, which was Wisconsin Avenue turn to Rockville Pike. Whatever, I digress. But going to school in Georgetown and knowing about the Exorcist stairs and everything, which was all where they filmed the movie, but they're what Washington people know is that the story that a lot of the movie is based off a real exorcism that occurred just across the line off of Rhode Island Avenue in PG County. I know that there's a debate about whether or not it was Cottage City, like a little further out, or a little further in. I forget what the name of that neighborhood is. But I do remember as a child, my dad would take us out there and say, this is where the real exorcist stuff used to happen. He used to freak us the fuck out. So there's a lot of things that blend that real world shit. I'm basically an atheist. I'd say I'm an agnostic more than anything. But yeah, I mean, that demon shit kind of still freaks me out. But I do also remember the Nightmare on Elm Street did nothing. I was not afraid to go to sleep or anything. Freddy Krueger looked like a straight up bitch. Just wasn't afraid of his stupid flannel stripe bullshit. Just like, what the fuck is this Edward Scissorhand knockoff motherfucking one? Just didn't care. But The Exorcist fucked me up. So I'm holding off on that. The girlfriend has never seen the movie, so I think we're going to save that for close to Halloween, maybe give that a shot. But like I've already gone through some other faves, like Ari Aster's movies. Hereditary is one that got watched a few nights ago. The Conjuring series, I'm a huge fan of. I still haven't finished the third in the Conjuring movie. I know the Nun 2 came out. I didn't really like the Nun 1, but the first Conjuring movie and the second Conjuring movie are fucking great. I think they're great flicks. Also just on like the outskirts of weird horror. I don't know if you guys are, but I'm a subscriber of basically every streaming service known to man. I thought it was supposed to replace cable and things were going to get better, but fuck that. I feel like more money's coming out of my account than ever. But I'm a subscriber to an app called Shudder, and Shudder is a horror movie streaming service. And they have some good ones on there. They got like classics that everybody knows are on there, but then they also have some pretty good, like, I'd say B horror movies, which are pretty good to just turn on sometimes. There's one movie series in particular that I still need to watch the second one, but I watched the first one in its full entirety for the first time last week, which was Terrifier. It's about this homicidal clown. Now, the clown's creepy as shit. Clowns don't freak me out. I actually have it's a weird thing. But clowns make me really, really sad. Talked to my therapist about it, and I'm not going to get in all the details here right now, but clowns don't typically scare me. They make me infinitely sad. We'll break that down another day. Terrifier was solid. It's not anything good story-wise, but there are some moments in that movie where I'm not a huge body horror guy, but every once in a while, when done shockingly enough, I could say, okay, I give you respect for that. Or how the fuck did you even pull that off? Or how was anybody allowed you to do that? And Terrifier had those moments. I know that Terrifier 2 is supposed to up the ante in a lot of ways, and I'm excited to check it out. I'll probably check that out at some point next week. But then just some of the other classics, or at least movies that are always solid to me. Blair Witch Project was always great, but I think after you watch it the first time, it doesn't really hit the same way the second time around. Paranormal Activity, another movie series that I absolutely adore. I adore the fact that Paranormal Activity really fucks your head on like the subtle levels, right? So like a door opens somewhere in your house. Is it the person you live with that opened the door? Or was it someone else? And even if you sleep with your significant other, movie plays off of that shit too. I just love the subtle ways in which it insidiously just gets in your brain and everything just feels unsettling. Yeah, I get my jollies off on that. I'm not a huge roller coaster dude. I don't really go to amusement parks. I'm too fat to jump out of planes. There's one place in America that is willing to accept me at my weight to jump out of a plane. It also is the place that had the absolute most skydiving accidents in the Western Hemisphere, which means I'm not fucking going there. So when it comes to adrenaline, I drive fast. One of the reasons I'm not allowed to have a motorcycle, self-imposed restriction. But I watch horror movies. They get the blood pumping, you know? Make me feel something. Yeah, and that's when we're in spooky season, so I'm watching them. Outside of Loki and Rick and Morty that just started, I'm in full-blown horror movie mode. I will see Killers of the Flower Moon, but other than that, horror movie up. And if anybody has any recommendations on a horror movie that I should check out, or like a series I should check out, that maybe I haven't seen yet, or whatever your favorites are, please drop them. I'd love to have a list that me and my girlfriend can kind of go through on the weekends or whatever. That'd be dope. All right, I think I've talked long enough. I think I'm hitting around the 40-minute mark, trying to keep these a little truncated. It's one thing to hear both of us, me and Amit, talk for 40 minutes, but like me by myself, I mean, I'd get sick and tired of my voice past a certain point. And not to mention, I have no idea how good I'm really sounding on any of this, right? I'm here in a room by myself. It feels awkward as shit just talking into a camera. I want to get better at it. Yeah, I want to practice, right? Practice. And I also love to hear you guys' feedback on how you think I'm doing with these. And if you got any input on what I should do differently, whatever, let me know. Let's get this right before Amit or A-Train come back to change things up again. All right. Love you guys. And see you hopefully on Monday for Shades Monday. Peace. Or I should do this way, right? I think this is... Peace.
In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.